Alrighty, hello and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I am Emma Zagurski, but I also go by Ziggyo on the internet, which is Ziggyo, and on TikTok, I also go by Ziggyo Films, and on YouTube here. So welcome, and today I'm very excited for this video because we are going to talk about Ari Aster's new film, and Ari Aster is one of my favorite horror directors, so this film I was very excited to see, and now I am very excited to talk about. So what are we talking about? We are talking about Beau Is Afraid. Woo! So if you enjoy this review and see, I always say analyze wrong. Analysis? I hope that's right. So if you enjoy this review and analysis, I will likely do more on different movies, new ones and old ones. So subscribe if you like it and give it a like if you like it, but also free country or free platform, so do what you want.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
Alrighty, so Beau Is Afraid is an intense, anxiety-inducing, hilarious train ride that gets very strange and I think pushes the envelope of what anyone could have expected from Ari Aster. Right after the movie, me and my friend were kind of like so confused, but after sitting on it for a bit, I've decided that I really like it. No, actually, I loved it. And I gave it a 9 out of 10, which I don't think this movie will be for everybody, and I don't think a lot of people will agree with me per se, but I'm going to try to defend my ranking in this video. Okay, so just to get this out of the way too, I'm a beginner / like inspiring film creator, so a lot of movies that we see within theaters are gonna get like an automatic technical high score from me because that's something that's just kind of like beyond my abilities in a sense right now, so I don't feel like comfortable judging those things within a movie, but I do feel comfortable judging kind of like the storyline or the cinematography in a sense, like the shots, the decisions of shots and stuff. So that's kind of mostly what we'll be talking about, and we'll be talking about acting a little bit. Not that I'm an actor, but I did do drama camp for quite a few summers when I was younger. Okay, so number one thing that was really great about this movie was like the cinematography. I always love Ari Aster's cinematography in a sense. I think he does a good job of portraying characters' emotions in the shots and the angles that he uses in a sense. So there's an animated sequence within the film that was like one of my favorite parts, and I think really showed the power and beauty of film. And many of the shots felt intentful and often reflected on an emotion within the shot, especially emotions that Beau was feeling. So for example, there were many shots showing Beau feeling small or terrified, or when he was like overcome with guilt and anxiety, like kind of like a high angle beaten down, you know. And there was some amazing foreshadowing, and sometimes that often added to like the feeling of anxiety and terror, which this film induced very well. Okay, another thing that was really great within this movie was the acting, especially the performance from Phoenix as Beau. The way he was able to portray the emotions of, you know, anxiety and terror were done very well, especially considering there was a lot of shots that were just very much just of his face within the frame. And so the ability to like keep the audience kind of encaptured and enticed with just the use of facial expressions and emotions, I think was very well done and kind of added to the terror that everyone was feeling. We were all feeling the terror with Beau and like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Like we were all worrying with him, so the acting was amazing. There was never once within the movie that I was ever questioning the quality of acting. The quality of acting within the film was always fantastic. And finally, I think the story and the world that Ari Aster has created within this movie is just absolutely fantastic. And I'll kind of talk more about those details when we get into the... See, I'm going to say this word wrong again, and I'm going to get analysis. When we get into the analysis, I should learn Yo, that word is too hard for me. And anyways, when we get to that later in this video, I'll kind of talk more about the storyline because I'll kind of be explaining where I think Ari Aster might be coming from, or at least like what I took out of the movie from my own personal viewing experiences. But the storyline was great, and I think that the message and the themes that they were trying to portray did it very well. It was it was definitely not shoved in your face. I always hate a storyline that is tell not show. I feel like that's one of the first things that everyone should learn in writing is to show, not tell. And I find like more often than not, especially with comedies these days, it's a very tell not show narrative. And within this film, it was a comedy horror. There was some great moments with the comedy, and it never had to explicitly tell it to the audience. We got to digest everything, just because honestly, everything, like the whole movie was through Beau's perspective, so we were just following the narrator. That was Beau. It was only through his perspective and just going along the ride with him. And I think it was very well done. I think it was beautiful. I think the story reflecting around anxiety and the worry of consequences and how that may reflect your relationship with others was very well done. So, beautiful. So I do have some very small and very few amount of critiques, which made it a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. Now, I will throw out 10 out of 10s for movies very easily because I think that we can never achieve perfection. Come on. There's so many medias and stuff even just talking about how like we'll never be perfect. We're humans. And I think that having an expectation of achieving a perfect movie is very unrealistic. So I like to go at it with the expectations of a 10 out of 10 is like an almost perfect movie. And I think there's just a couple of things within Beau Is Afraid that keeps it from being like an almost perfect movie. And so let's get into those. So I do think that the film was a little long, and there was a couple of moments within the film that I kind of like struggled, I guess, to sit through in a sense, where I was kind of just waiting for something to happen, and I think something could have happened a little bit earlier. So yeah, I do think that the 3-hour long time was a little bit long and maybe could have been reduced just a little bit just to make it a little bit easier to sit through, because yeah, there was a couple of moments where I'm like, okay, come on, my butt is hurting. You got me focused on my butt instead of the movie. And like that, when that happens, I'm just saying, I feel like that's not, those scenes probably could have used a little improvement. Now, do I remember what scenes they were? No. Do I remember like kind of what they were? Yeah, it was there was a lot of zoom-ins of close-ups on Beau's face, and it was often when he was on the phone, and I appreciate the length in it because as a person with anxiety, phone calls are the worst. They really are. And I feel like it captures just even like the terror sometimes of having to do a basic phone call. But I feel like they could have been reduced a little bit. They were a little painful to sit through sometimes.
What?
I know. But yeah, this isn't really like a critique on my part, but just maybe a fair warning for some people. It is a very strange movie, and it uses some very dark humor, which I don't think... At some points, I was even confused if it was supposed to be funny or not, but I still laughed. So I'm assuming it was supposed to be funny. Like, this movie just, like, it has this almost comedic tone, and I think it works very well because a lot of the situations wouldn't happen in real life, so you can kind of laugh at, like, the ridiculousness of the situation. So I think that, while not a critique on my part, because I kind of enjoyed it, I think a lot of people will find this movie very strange, and it's kind of a fair warning that I recommend watching it passively instead of actively. Like, don't try to sit there and figure every little thing out, because it'll be revealed in the end. You've just got to sit through the ride. And yeah, it was a really great movie. So very small critiques, and that is why I gave it a 9 out of 10. Alrighty, so that's the rating that I gave it and kind of the review. So now I'm going to give a spoiler warning for the rest of this video. So for the analysis part of this video, I'm going to be talking about some specific scenes and kind of the ending. So just a warning, spoiler. Beau Is Afraid is definitely a weird movie, and definitely unlike Ari Aster's previous works in his discography. And so I'm going to sit here and try to make some sense out of whatever I saw. And Whether or not that's exactly what Ari Aster was going for or not, it's kind of what I got out of the film, and I felt like I had a pretty personal connection with it because people pleasing is something that I struggle with, and anxiety is something that I struggle with. So those aspects of the film really resonated with me a lot. So a lot of what I took from it was kind of from those aspects of the film. So I feel like maybe I'll be a little biased in my analysis here. I have so much trouble with that word. So it is important to note that the narration and the perspective throughout the film is solely through Bao's eyes and his shoes. So as we are like watching, it's all his perspective. And as Bao is like an anxiety riddled man, and anxiety is a large theme within the movie, some of the things that we are seeing, maybe it's kind of implied almost with those contexts that what we are seeing may not be the full truth, or it may not even be fully reality, or it could be some of the situations have been exaggerated because we see Bao often worrying about the consequences of his actions. So it's almost like he thinks of these situations before they even happen because he's so scared. So I think there's like a warped reality and perception throughout this movie, which kind of can explain the weirdness throughout it. And so some other large themes within the movie are guilt and consequences, as I kind of talked about a lot throughout this video. As we see, Bao is struggling and worrying constantly about the consequences of his actions, which is a terrifying world that Ari Aster has created, as we are like, once again, watching this through his eyes. And it's a very scary world of very heightened anxiety, and just, it's like a nightmare world. He's created this world where absolutely everything goes wrong, and it's like, because beautiful movie, it just all comes together. But for example, Bao within the film at one point finds himself face to face with like a police officer who is carrying a gun, and Bao is so, I think, worried about getting hurt and the consequences of his run-in with this cop that he almost imagines, or it's likely implied that he kind of is exaggerating the situation because the police officer starts threatening him and thinks that he is this crazy birthday suit killer on the loose. So that's kind of like one of the examples where I think that his heightened anxiety has kind of warped reality. Another important aspect to the film that also adds to the themes is Bao's relationship with his mother. So at the end of the film, it is revealed or shown that Bao's mother is controlling or owns basically almost every aspect of Bao's life, from the people around him and in his life, like the scary people or the one girl that he had a romantic attraction to the apartment that he's living in, and even to like the furniture that is within his apartment that is all owned and controlled by his mother and his mother's company, because she's a very successful businesswoman. But I think this control over Bao's life kind of led to Bao being afraid of displeasing his mother, as it is also implied within the film that Bao's mother would get like very ragey when he wouldn't be perfect, and maybe had some very severe consequences, like being locked up in an attic, where some of Bao's, once again, worst fears kind of like come to light. That attic scene is just absolutely wild. I saw some TikToks about it, but they didn't tell me what it was specifically, so I thought I was prepped for it. I really was not. But throughout the film, you definitely get this feeling like Bao is being watched, and I think he feels like he's being watched by his mother at all times. Kind of because he is, but also it's like, is he kind of making this up? It's so hard to know, it's just like, what's great about this movie is not its physical plot or physical storyline, but its meaning and its themes and what it was trying to portray with emotions is just so well done. And I think this leads to Bao feeling like he was put on trial throughout his entire life, and that he was constantly having to watch what he was doing and make sure that he never messed up, which is so unrealistic for humans because we mess up all the time. We're not 100% perfect. Which would then kind of explain the ending of the movie, where he is literally put on trial and faces his biggest fears of what happens when he has to face consequences of his actions and he's not perfect, And what if people leave him behind and he's not good enough for them? And that's what happens. But in short, I think the external plot or external message would be, don't be a people pleaser, but in a more seriousness tone. I think that this film is definitely about the helplessness one may feel with anxiety and how it can be hard to live with, and the guilt one may feel about that and how it affects their relationships. So thank you for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe if you do. Follow me on my other social medias. I'll have them down in the description below. But Beau Is Afraid is a wildly confusing but beautiful ride, and I highly recommend that. Even though it might not be your cup of tea, I say try it out. Maybe you'll watch a movie you never thought you'd ever watch before. It's very fascinating. I highly recommend it. So I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks for checking me out if you did, and goodbye.